Hey, YouTube. So, if you kept your ear to the street, you would hear a lot about this Angel Reese and Caitlyn going back and forth during the women's, I believe, national championships. And to be honest with you, my only opinion on this whole thing is we have to look at ourselves. There was a time of day that you went to the game to watch someone compete, right? It didn't matter how ugly it was. It didn't matter how grit and grimy it was. That was the whole reason we went. We have to admit, there's a lot of softies with us now, dog. Let's get into it.
Keith Olbermann, we're talking about you.
Ooh.
I'm talking about you. Who went ahead and went on Twitter and called Angel Reese an effing idiot for doing the exact same thing that Caitlin Clark did. And if memory serves me correctly, you were celebrating when she did it. But when another woman
You
does
can't
it,
see
whose skin
me.
color looks a little bit different, all of a sudden she's an idiot. All of a sudden she's classless. All of a sudden she's ghetto. No, you have the problem. We don't have the problem. You have the problem. So I'm talking about you. First and foremost, I think it's
She ready.
extremely unfortunate that this is the conversation that we're having instead of focusing on two women who are going to be phenomenal assets to the WNBA whenever they make the decision that they want to go ahead and
That's
enter the
facts.
draft. I think that it's an unfortunate reality of the world that we live in. So this is what I'm going to say about this. It is a constant reminder that we still have a very long way to go, because instead of focusing and uplifting and celebrating these two women and these two teams for incredible
feel like
seasons,
we were better back
we're
then,
having
kinda.
a conversation because people, and by people, I'm going to be very specific, people who claim that sports are colorist, people who claim that sports are unifying but will take the first opportunity, as evident as yesterday, to bash a young brown or black woman for doing the exact same thing that they have uplifted her white peer for doing. And you know, people will say, oh, it's not about race, and why is everything about race? Because you made it about that. Nobody was going ahead and having this conversation until you made it clearly evident that everything that comes out of your mouth when you talk about lack of bias in sports and sports being colorist and sports being unifying is only prevalent when those athletes, those black and brown athletes, remain in the box that makes you feel comfortable. Because the minute they step outside of that box,
Allen Iverson is all I have to say personally. Watching that was kind of fucked up.
now it's, oh, they're bad sports. They're ghetto. They're too loud. They're obnoxious. How can they? This is what the problem is with sports. No, the problem with sports is that there are people like you, and you know who you are. I don't have to go ahead and name names and point fingers. You know exactly
She's so
who
spicy,
you are. And
boy.
everybody knows who you are because we saw it in black
Ain't no
and white
problem with
on
it.
Twitter. You let your racial bias come out whenever athletes step outside of the box that you tried to put them in. But I'm going to keep it very short and sweet. Angel Reese does not owe you anything. She doesn't have to stay in the box to make you feel comfortable. Neither does any other athlete, male or female. So if you have an issue with the way that they choose to express themselves when doing the exact same hand gesture or exact same trash talking as their white peers do, if that makes you uncomfortable, change the channel. Because we are no longer shrinking ourselves as a community of people to make you feel comfortable. So your options are to deal with it or keep it moving. We're not doing that anymore.
I don't think, as a people, we've ever shrank. Personally, I think it's very American as a whole to stand up for your kind and who you come from and represent what we all have went through here. And me speaking specifically on black people, I don't think black people ever shrunk down and this, that, and third. And there was no shrinking them. There was no keeping them down. There was no making them go away. And, you know.
And it's a shame that you are pitting these two women against each other because your racial bias continues to.
There's my problem. That's my problem. Okay, there is no reason why a young black and a young white competitor should be put against each other for nothing but talent alone. It should be only purely about talent and what these young ladies bring to the game, which is a lot. I don't know what everyone's watching, but this spectator sickness that's been going around lately, it needs to go.
show.
Needs to go.
We didn't do it. You did. And you know exactly who you are.
So Dawn Staley of the South Carolina Gamecocks, she came out after their loss. They could have made history this weekend as well if they had won 3 in a row. She said the same thing. She said in the media, you know, when you guys talk about our team, you're calling us thugs. You're saying
Shout out to
this,
Brandon
we're
Marshall.
trash. And that's not. And she actually went out and called people by names. It felt. I think she did that, or she was close to doing.
I'll call it by name. Keith Olbermann, we're talking about you.
Ooh.
I'm talking about
This
you.
is the second time she's done this
Who
too.
went ahead and went on Twitter and called Angel Reese an effing idiot for doing the exact same thing that Caitlin Clark did.
Oh, this is the
and if
highlight.
memory
Gotcha.
serves me correctly, you were celebrating when she did it. But when another woman does it, whose skin color looks a little bit different, all of a sudden she's an idiot. All of a sudden she's classless. All of a sudden she's ghetto. No, you have the problem. We don't have the problem. You have the problem. So I'm talking about you and everybody else like you who went ahead and had the same sentiments that day, but didn't keep that same energy for Caitlin Clark. And it's a shame that these two women are being pit against each other because it is not about them.
I'm laughing because strong women make me proud. Women who aren't afraid of speaking their mind and their narrative make me very happy down to my core. I was raised by one. She comes from one. She comes from. Listen, it's just some in my DNA. Makes me happy.
Because they both went ahead and had incredible seasons, incredible games, and like I said, will be incredible assets to the WNBA. They are what the game needs, and they're going to help push the game forward. But how dare you pit these two women against each other? You, sir,
That's
are
my
part
argument.
of the problem.
That's
You're
my
hot.
argument.
Yeah, I'm pissed.
Hey, listen.
More ways than
Ashley,
one.
Listen, she came in. She want all the smoke right now. I was like, well, I think this is a good thing. She said, hold up. I disagree. You wanted to wait. You was going to take my head off.
No, because
If I said the wrong thing, you was really going to go
no,
at me.
because
Probably.
you know what? This is This is something that every single person of color, whether you are black, brown, somewhere in the middle, has dealt with and will continue to deal with for their entire life. And every time you bring it up,
That's
people
unfortunate.
want to say, oh, it's not about race. Why do you always have to make it about race? Because you are constantly reminding us it is about race.
think-
Nobody was pitting these two women against each other until the same people who are constantly claiming that sports are unifying and colorist and sports is the only place where everyone is equal started pitting these two women against each other. You are constantly
Yeah,
contradicting
but
yourself
here's the thing.
every opportunity
But
you
here's
get.
the thing, though. Like, this conversation,
Yeah,
I mean,
she's
the
fuming.
other layer to this conversation, we're talking about, a black woman or just women. If you throw Caitlyn in there, a woman's experience, a black woman's experience is totally different than a black man's experience, right? But
That's
this
true.
is the same thing that Lamar Jackson is dealing with. It's the same conversation that we've been having as far as like, why are you guys treating us differently, right? And I just think that
It's a little different.
athletes,
It's a little
well,
different.
I just pray that athletes are paying attention, got their ears open, their eyes open,
I agree with that.
and they're moving accordingly. Like, we have all the power, Ashley. This is why I preach what I preach. Like, we can do a lot of this shit ourselves. Now, I'm not gonna go back to the conversation we had Thursday and you, D-Jack, got on me, but what I'm saying is, why do we continue to sit down with the Keith Obermans? Why do we continue to sit down
Money,
with him?
power,
Because he
stature.
has what platform? Because what is he giving us? Why can't we do it?
He used his platform to spew.
But I'm just using him as the
nastiness towards
example.
This young woman.
I'm just using him as the example. We have to be very strategic in this time. This is very sensitive time. Athletes should be figuring out what athletes do they sit down with. Artists should be sitting down with other artists. We need to be building each other up and each other's platforms up because we're going to protect each other. It's the fraternity. Like, we can still have a tough conversation.
He has
we
a
can still hold
point.
each other
He has a
accountable.
point. And I do
but
understand what he's saying.
Understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
Understand what makes
Don't just say that.
their
though.
networks go and what pays their bills. It's how they talk about us, and not in a good way.
You gotta speak on races.
Hopefully,
You
we
gotta
have
call
our
them
eyes
races.
open,
You feel me?
and our ears to the street and paying attention during this time.
No,
Don't just say
absolutely.
that.
And before we, move on from this conversation, I just want to remind everybody, especially young women and young women across the board, but specifically women of color, don't shrink yourselves to make people comfortable. because there are going to be a lot of people who try to put you in a box because they're uncomfortable. And this is evident as of yesterday, and it's been evident across the board, male or female, but specifically young women. People will tell you you're too loud. People will tell you you're too this, you're too that. Oh, you should do a little bit less of that. You should do a little bit less of that, because they're uncomfortable. Don't shrink yourselves for them. Tell them to catch up or shut up. It's as simple as that.
Bow. My only thing is to all people, right? Because I see this happen all the time. One of the quotes that stuck with me is, "He who angers you controls you." Okay? As people as a whole, we have to do better with communicating our ideas when we're angry. That's all I want to say about that. I think she did a phenomenal job. You feel me? Wow. I guess it's time for you to hit the noti bell, get to know me well. Ain't nothing left to say. Everybody have a blessed day. I love y'all so fucking much. We out.